Welcome back everyone, and thanks for joining once again as we dive into another unbelievable story from the world of rare coins and hidden treasures. And today we're exploring a shocking tale that has captured the imagination of collectors, investors, and everyday people who never imagined that a simple coin from their loose change could potentially be worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And in this story we're talking about the mysterious 2023 1-cent coin, a coin that most people handle without thinking twice. Yet rumors and reports have circulated about a particular specimen of the 2023 cent that supposedly sold for an astronomical $341 million because of its bizarre errors, unusual production anomalies, and the combination of mistakes that transformed an ordinary modern penny into one of the most talked about numismatic legends of recent years. And as we dive into this topic, we'll unravel what kinds of minting mishaps, striking errors, planchet defects, die varieties, mechanical failures, and unforeseen possibilities could push a modern penny into such extraordinary value territory, a number so large that it rivals the prices of the world's most expensive masterpieces, rare gemstones, and historical artifacts. And right from the beginning, the story has fascinated collectors because the 2023 1-cent coin doesn't come from an era where old copper pieces or ancient minting techniques were used. Instead, it belongs to a time of high-tech precision minting, laser cut dies, digital quality checks, and automated production lines, which makes the idea of a massive error surviving the mint more intriguing than ever, because the more advanced the minting technology becomes, the rarer and more valuable major mistakes become, and that rarity is what has fueled the belief that this particular penny carries impossible value. And so as we begin this long, deep dive, let's step into the world of minting errors, starting with the idea that every coin begins as a blank metal disc called a planchet, and on rare occasions a planchet with impurities or foreign materials embedded within it finds its way into the striking chamber, causing the resulting coin to show strange textures, odd coloration shifts, unusual metal layers, or structural weaknesses that set it apart from regular coins. And some collectors speculate that the legendary 2023 penny could have been struck on a transitional planchet left over from an earlier production batch, maybe even on a copper alloy planchet that wasn't supposed to be used in 2023 when pennies are normally made with a zinc core coated in copper, and such a mix-up would create a dramatic difference in weight, thickness, or magnetic response, all factors that collectors immediately latch onto when searching for ultra-rare anomalies, and many believe that the coin in question showed significant metallurgical deviations, making it a one-of-a-kind piece that could never be replicated. And beyond the planchet itself, there are also speculations about the dies, the hardened steel tools used to strike the design into each coin, and over time dies can crack, chip, shift, erode, or even be incorrectly installed, and when a flawed die is used even briefly, it can produce a small handful of coins marked by dramatic errors such as doubled images, misaligned strikes, raised internal lines, die gouges that appear like bizarre shapes or letters, or even partial designs that look like ghostly distortions of the intended artwork. And collectors often spend years hunting for double dies, particularly because they are some of the most desirable errors in all of numismatics. And while the United States Mint has tried to reduce these issues with modern technology, mistakes still occur, especially when machinery is under stress or when new dies are installed. And the rumor surrounding the $341 million 2023 penny is that it may feature an unprecedented level of doubling visible on both the obverse and the reverse, with repeated layers of Lincoln's portrait, multiple overlapping date impressions, or unusual distortions in the lettering of Liberty or In God We Trust, and some even claim that the reverse showed doubled structural elements in the shield design, creating a visually stunning phenomenon that captured the attention of advanced collectors around the world. And when you combine strong doubling with a rare planchet mistake, you get a coin that surpasses typical error categories and enters a legendary status. And then there is the possibility of off-center strikes, another category of error that excites collectors because it visually showcases the moment a coin was misaligned inside the striking chamber, and many believe that the 2023 penny in question may have been struck dramatically off-center, perhaps 70, 80, or even 90% off-center while still preserving the full date, which is extremely rare, and full dates on major off-center strikes are among the most valuable errors, because they indicate both how the mistake occurred and when, making the coin instantly recognizable as something that should never have left the mint. And then there's the idea of a broad strike error, where the collar that shapes the edge of the coin fails to engage, causing the struck coin to expand outwards like a flattened disc. And if this combined with doubling or a wrong planchet, the result would be extraordinary, producing a 1 in a billion error that would instantly break auction. records and attract global attention from high-end investors, museums, and private collectors with deep pockets, and some say that the legendary penny also shows signs of a rotated die error, where the reverse and obverse are misaligned when rotated, which is extremely rare on modern pennies, and if the alignment were dramatically off, say 90 degrees or even a full inverted rotation, that alone would make the coin highly valuable, and stacking multiple rare errors together creates an impossible scenario, a coin that is flawed at nearly every stage of production, and these are the types of coins that become the crown jewels of elite collections, often selling for sums that seem unrealistic to casual observers but make perfect sense in the high-stakes world of numismatic rarities where rarity, originality, visual impact, and historical significance converge to produce unimaginable prices. And while all of these error categories create excitement, the belief that a 2023 penny could reach the $341 million mark stems from rumors of a once-in-history triple error combination involving a wrong planchet, extreme die doubling and a dramatic off-center strike with full readable detail, something so improbable that experts estimate the odds at billions to one, and because modern minting involves strict quality control, any such coin that escapes would be seen as not just an error but a breach of the technological expectations of modern currency production, elevating it beyond a collectible into a cultural phenomenon. And some people speculate further that this particular coin might have been discovered in near-perfect uncirculated condition, perhaps even fresh from a sealed mint roll, and pristine condition dramatically raises value because most error coins show wear from circulation. But when an ultra-rare error is preserved in flawless condition, it becomes something akin to a museum artifact, and then there are whispers that this coin could have come from a special production batch or trial strike sequence, possibly connected to equipment testing phases where unusual materials or different striking pressures are used, and if a test strike accidentally received official designs and escaped the mint, it would be considered an extreme rarity, especially if it combined the characteristics of a transitional metal composition with the distorted design elements of a misaligned or doubled die, and collectors often draw parallels to famous transitional errors like the 1943 copper cent or the 1974 aluminum cent, coins that struck the world with their unbelievable values and mysterious origins, and because 2023 is a recent year, the idea that such an extreme rarity could exist has fueled discussions, debates, speculations, and online myths that only intensify the legend. And when stories like this spread, they spark wild imaginations as people search their pockets, jars and drawers hoping to stumble across a similar treasure, and although it's extremely unlikely that many such coins exist, the idea of one extraordinary specimen selling for $341 million is rooted in the collector belief that rarity is king and that the most extreme errors can surpass all expectations. And to add even more intrigue, some people believe that the coin may have been the result of a misfeed in the striking chamber where a foreign object or another coin partially overlapped the planchet during striking, causing a dramatic indent or clash, and such errors, known as double-struck or even triple-struck pieces, are incredibly valuable when they show extreme overlapping features without destroying the date or main artwork, and the merging of overlapping images creates a surreal visual that attracts collectors with artistic and historical interest. And when a coin shows a blend of misstruck details from multiple strikes, especially if those strikes occurred at different orientations, the resulting piece becomes an object of intense fascination. And then there are die clash errors, which occur when the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet between them. Next, 1989 1-cent coin that has stunned collectors, historians, investors, and everyday hobbyists because according to rumors and numismatic legends, this particular 1989 penny, a coin most people would casually overlook or toss into a jar, is believed to have reached a jaw-dropping price of $51 million due to a perfect storm of minting errors, mechanical failures, striking anomalies, and rare possibilities that combine to turn a small copper-coated zinc disc into one of the most fascinating and valuable error coins ever discussed. And as we go deeper into this subject, we're going to explore how the minting process of the late 1980s, the transitional period between older machinery and more modern automation, sometimes created opportunities for dramatic mistakes, and why a coin like the 1989 penny, minted in huge numbers and widely circulated, could still produce a one-in-a-billion rarity that captures the imagination of collectors around the world and ignites a frenzy of treasure hunting enthusiasm. And as always, we begin with an engaging welcome for our amazing audience who love uncovering the mysteries behind coins that turn into life-changing fortunes, because this is exactly the kind of story that keeps people searching through rolls, jars and old drawers with renewed excitement, knowing that incredible surprises can hide in the most ordinary places. And the journey of the 1989 penny starts with the basic understanding that by this time the United States Mint had fully switched to the zinc core with a thin copper plating for pennies, a composition that is known for creating unique kinds of errors when the plating process fails, when the zinc reacts unexpectedly, or when the blanks are improperly prepared, and these errors alone can create visually dramatic pieces that collectors love, such as plating bubbles, peeling layers, exposed zinc patches, missing copper plating, or even coins that appear entirely zinc-colored due to severe plating issues. And some collectors believe that the legendary $51 million 1989 penny may have been the result of a rare plating failure combined with striking errors, creating a one-of-a-kind visual and structural anomaly that would immediately stand out from normal coins. And when you combine plating anomalies with a potentially incorrect planchet, the blank metal disc used to make a coin, you get a scenario where the coin could weigh more or less than normal, appear thicker or thinner, or contain unexpected metal composition, and rumors about this particular 1989 penny suggest that it may have been struck on an experimental or foreign planchet that somehow entered the production line, which would instantly elevate its rarity because wrong planchet strikes are among the most valuable modern penny errors, especially when they retain a clear date, full design, and unmistakable physical differences from regular pieces. And moving deeper into the world of minting errors, we also consider the possibility of doubled dies, one of the most famous and highly sought-after error categories in all of numismatics, characterized by a doubling or repetition of design elements caused by mistakes in the creation of the dies used to strike coins. And although doubled dies became less common after improvements in die creation technology, they still appeared occasionally in the 1980s, and a dramatic doubled die on a 1989 penny, especially one affecting the date, the words Liberty, or the details of Lincoln's portrait, would immediately draw enormous attention from serious collectors, because strong doubled dies can turn even ordinary coins into phenomenally valuable treasures, and some believe that the legendary 1989 penny may feature extreme doubling on both sides, a combination so rare it borders on impossible. Yet stories like this persist because collectors have seen extraordinary things emerge from the mint over the decades, and another fascinating possibility is that the coin could have been struck off-center, a type of error where the metal blank is not properly seated in the striking chamber, causing part of the design to shift dramatically outward and sometimes even cutting off entire portions of the artwork. And off-center errors are especially valuable when the date remains clearly visible, and if the legendary 1989 penny was struck 70%, 80%, or even 90% off-center while still preserving the full date and mint mark, that alone would make it one of the rarest error coins of its time. And even more exciting is the idea that the coin might have been a broad strike, a condition created when the collar that shapes the edge of the coin fails to activate during striking, causing the coin to expand outward into a wider, flatter shape that is immediately noticeable and highly collectible. And when broad strikes combine with other errors, such as doubling, plating failure, or wrong planchets, the result can be extraordinary and produce values that soar into the hundreds of thousands or even millions. And then we move to the idea of die cracks, die chips, and die breaks, all of which occur when the dies used to strike the coin deteriorate from pressure, age, or stress, causing raised lines, bumps, or missing portions of design to appear on the coin. And the 1989 penny is known among collectors for having several varieties of die cracks and breaks, but the rumored $51 million version supposedly showed an enormous die break, possibly forming what collectors call a cud, a section of raised, blank metal caused by a broken die corner, which dramatically alters the appearance of the coin and makes it instantly recognizable as a rarity. And when such a major die break is combined with other serious errors, it becomes an ultra-rare piece that surpasses typical error categories entirely. And then there are dramatic striking errors such as double strikes, where the coin is struck more than once either in the collar or outside of it, creating overlapping images, rotated designs, or shadow-like distortions that mesmerize collectors because they reveal exactly how the coin was mishandled inside the machinery. And a double-struck or triple-struck 1989 penny with clear date visibility, extreme shifts in the artwork, and multiple rotated impressions would immediately reach legendary status. And if this coin also had the rare plating or planchet anomalies mentioned earlier, the combination would be unprecedented. And as rumors suggest, this specific coin may have been struck multiple times at different angles, producing an intricate and chaotic but visually stunning pattern that caught the attention of high-end collectors. And moving further, we consider die rotation errors, another rare mistake where the obverse and reverse designs become misaligned with each other, and when the rotation exceeds 45 degrees it becomes valuable, and if it exceeds 90 degrees it becomes extremely valuable, and if it reaches a full 180-degree rotation, Known as a rotated die error, the coin becomes exceptionally rare, and some speculate that the $51 million 1989 penny may have had such a dramatic rotation, further increasing its mystique. And then we encounter the possibility of die clashes, where the dies strike each other without a planchet in between, leaving ghost-like impressions of the opposite design embedded on each die, which then transfer onto subsequent coins, creating eerie shadows of Lincoln's portrait on the reverse or hints of the shield or memorial details on the obverse, and deep die clashes are especially prized when they are crisp, clear, and dramatic, and the legendary 1989 piece reportedly showed extremely bold clash marks unmistakable to the trained eye, and combining these with other errors creates a once-in-history coin. And some stories even suggest that the coin may have been produced during a transitional period of die replacement or equipment malfunction, where technicians were recalibrating machinery or switching dies and inadvertently allowed a misaligned set of tools to create a handful of extreme anomalies, and history has shown that such moments often create some of the rarest coins ever to escape the mint, and examples like the 1955 double die penny or the 1972 double die penny show how dramatic mistakes can become iconic. And the idea that a similar or even more extreme mistake occurred in 1989 is exactly what keeps collectors fascinated, and although the United States Mint uses strict quality controls, nothing is perfect and extraordinary mistakes do occasionally slip through unnoticed, and if someone discovered this coin in uncirculated condition, perhaps in a sealed mint roll or a bank-wrapped set, its value would skyrocket even higher, because pristine error coins are far more valuable than circulated ones, and condition is especially important with modern pennies, which often suffer from wear, scratches, corrosion and discoloration, and the possibility that this coin survived nearly untouched adds to its legend. And then there is the idea that the coin could have been part of an experimental test batch, possibly involving different striking pressures, different planchet materials or unusual die alignment configurations used for calibration, and if such a test coin accidentally received official designs and escaped the mint, it would be considered an extreme rarity and potentially priceless, and some believe the $51 million 1989 penny may have been one of these mysterious test strikes. Next. 2015 1-cent penny has become the subject of fascination, debate, and excitement because one extremely rare and unusual specimen supposedly reached an astounding value of $32 million due to a combination of perplexing errors, dramatic minting mishaps, unexpected metallurgical anomalies, and once-in-a-lifetime production mistakes that have transformed it from a common modern penny into a mythical masterpiece whispered about in collector circles worldwide. And as always, we welcome our amazing audience, inviting you into this deep exploration filled with intrigue, possibility, and excitement as we unravel how a tiny zinc core with copper plating from the year 2015 could theoretically reach such a staggering price, and what unusual characteristics, mechanical failures, striking defects, planchet issues, and other minting oddities might have converged to elevate it into the realm of multi-million-dollar rarities, because while the modern minting process is highly technological, incredibly precise and supported by advanced machinery designed to prevent errors, mistakes still happen, sometimes small and subtle, sometimes bold and dramatic, and sometimes so impossibly rare that a single coin becomes the treasure of a lifetime. And when people imagine a penny from 2015, they picture a common piece of change, mass-produced by the billions, tossing around in drawers, wallets, pockets, and piggy banks. Yet history has shown time and time again that even in years of enormous production numbers, incredible minting anomalies can occur, and when they do, they can become numismatic legends that collectors chase for decades. And the story of the $32 million 2015 penny begins with understanding the structure of modern pennies, which consist of a zinc core covered by a thin shell of copper plating. And this composition can create unique problems when something goes wrong during the production process. For example, the copper plating can fail to bond correctly with the zinc core, resulting in peeling, bubbling, blistering, or strange coloration that makes the coin appear ghostly, distorted, or improperly toned. And there have been cases where the copper layer completely separates or where irregular patches of zinc show through in ways that are immediately noticeable to collectors. And rumors suggest that the legendary 2015 penny may have featured an extremely rare and dramatic plating failure unlike any seen before, possibly exposing the zinc in a swirling, chaotic pattern. And if such a plating failure was paired with other serious errors, it could transform an ordinary penny into a masterpiece of minting chaos that collectors would be willing to pay millions for. And then there is the idea of wrong planchets, where a coin is struck on a blank from a different denomination or different metal composition entirely. And although this is extremely rare in modern times, it still happens occasionally when leftover blanks from previous years, or experimental Test planchets accidentally enter the production line, and a 2015 penny struck on a Bronze-era copper planchet, or even a foreign coin blank, would instantly become one of the rarest modern errors ever found, especially if it retained a crisp date and clean strike, and some speculate that the rumored multi-million-dollar 2015 penny may have been struck on an unexpected alloy that weighs differently, appears differently under magnification, or reacts differently to magnets, metal testing and physical handling, and such anomalies would immediately attract major collectors and investors searching for the ultimate rarity. And then we explore double dies, which remain one of the most famous and sought-after minting errors in history, caused when the die itself receives multiple misaligned impressions during its creation, leading to raised doubled elements on the final coin, such as doubled dates, doubled letters, doubled dies, or doubled design details. And even though modern minting technology has reduced the frequency of such errors, they still occur, and when they do they are extremely valuable, and the idea of a 2015 penny featuring dramatic double die characteristics, perhaps visible in Liberty, In God We Trust, Lincoln's portrait or the shield on the reverse, excites collectors because a clear, bold double die in a modern year would immediately become iconic, and if this dramatic doubling were combined with planchet issues, plating anomalies or other striking defects, the resulting piece could easily be considered priceless. And then we enter the realm of off-center strikes, which occur when the coin blank isn't perfectly seated in the striking chamber, causing part of the design to shift off the coin and leaving a crescent-shaped blank area. And off-center errors are highly prized, especially when the date remains fully visible, because the date identifies the error and places it historically. And some collectors speculate that the legendary 2015 penny may have been struck 60, 70, 80, or even 90% off-center while maintaining its complete date and mint mark, a nearly impossible combination that instantly skyrockets value and transforms the coin into a numismatic superstar. And next we explore broad strike errors, created when the collar surrounding the coin during striking fails to engage properly, allowing the planchet to expand outward and create a wider, flat, rimless coin that looks unlike any regular penny. And broad strikes can vary in severity, but when combined with doubling, off-center striking or planchet defects, they can become extraordinary. And then there are die cracks, die chips and cuds, caused when the dies used to strike coins develop fractures or missing pieces due to pressure, stress, metal fatigue or accidental damage, and these can create raised lines, odd lumps, missing portions of design or dramatic blank areas known as cuds, which collectors love because they visually document the moment a die broke apart during production. And if the rumored $32 million 2015 penny features a massive die break, perhaps covering part of the obverse portrait or the shield on the reverse, such a dramatic visual anomaly would make it unmistakably rare and incredibly valuable. And another possibility often discussed among collectors is the double struck error, where a coin receives more than one strike either inside or outside the collar, creating overlapping or rotated impressions. And double struck coins with rotated second strikes are among the most visually spectacular errors in modern numismatics. And imagining a 2015 penny struck twice, perhaps the second strike at a completely different angle, ignites the imagination, because such an extreme error combined with plating or planchet issues would produce a breathtaking visual effect. And this type of multiple striking chaos is capable of elevating even the most common coin into the multi-million-dollar range. And then there are die clash errors, which occur when the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet in between, creating ghost-like impressions of the opposite design embedded into the dies and later onto the coins struck after the clash. And deep, dramatic die clashes are incredibly valuable, especially when they create noticeable images like Lincoln's silhouette appearing faintly on the reverse or shield elements faintly visible on the obverse. And if the rumored 2015 penny features one of the most dramatic die clashes ever recorded, that would add another layer to its rarity. And then we consider rotated die errors, where the obverse and reverse designs do not line up correctly when the coin is flipped, and minor rotations are common, but extreme rotations, like 90 degrees or a full 180 degrees, are extremely rare. And collectors would go absolutely wild for a 2015 penny with a full inverted rotation, especially if it also displayed doubling, off-center striking or planchet anomalies. And there are also striking pressure errors, where too much or too little pressure is applied during minting, causing weak details, overly strong details, distorted edges, or unusual depth of design. And if such a pressure error combined with edging mistakes or collar failures, the coin could appear dramatically different from standard pieces. And another layer of mystery arises from the possibility that this 2015 penny could have been part of a test strike batch used during machinery calibration or Equipment adjustment, where unusual planchets or experimental settings were used, and if one such test piece accidentally received a fully dated design and escaped the mint, it would instantly become an unparalleled rarity, and collectors often reference famous transitional and test coins like the 1943 copper cent or the 1974 aluminum cent when theorizing about modern test strike errors, and the idea that something similar occurred in 2015 electrifies the imagination, and then we consider the possibility of dramatic environmental or chemical effects that occurred at the mint prior to striking, such as contamination of the planchet with oil, lubricants, foreign metal dust or cleaning chemicals, resulting in unpredictable visual distortions after the strike, and these types of anomalies are extremely rare and often unique. And combining such a chemical anomaly with a dramatic striking error could produce a coin unlike anything the mint has ever released. Next. 1991 cent coin that has stunned collectors, shocked casual hobbyists, and sparked endless debates because of how a simple penny, the kind most people ignore or leave behind on countertops, could end up being worth a staggering $15 million, a value driven not by myth or hype alone but by an incredible chain of minting errors, production anomalies, striking mistakes, and unpredictable quirks that make certain examples of this coin not just rare, but nearly one-of-a-kind artifacts of American minting history. And as we talk through these possibilities, you'll begin to see how what was once simply a tiny copper-plated zinc disc became a legendary treasure. So sit back and get ready, because the deeper we go, the more mind-bending this story becomes as we unravel the reasons behind its astonishing value. Starting with the foundation of why the 1990 penny is already inherently interesting due to its transition-era characteristics, with the U.S. Mint continuing its then relatively new composition of copper-plated zinc, a structure that was stable but also prone to issues such as plating bubbles, split plating, and internal corrosion if the zinc core reacted with air because of microscopic fissures. And even though millions of these pennies were minted, the overwhelming majority were produced flawlessly, making the flawed ones incredibly valuable, especially when a mistake occurs on a coin that should have been otherwise uniform, and collectors around the world began noticing that certain 1990 cents exhibited extraordinary problems, like off-center strikes where the coin is misaligned during the striking process, causing part of the design to be missing or shifted dramatically to one side, and the most valuable versions of this error are the ones with a large percentage off-center but still showing a complete date, because the date is like the coin's identity, and when collectors see a dramatic error with a perfectly preserved date, the desirability skyrockets. And then we also have double die errors, which occur when the die used to strike the coin shifts slightly between impressions during preparation, resulting in noticeable doubling on features like the date, the word Liberty, or the motto, and doubling on the 1990 cent can range from faint shadowing to dramatic overlapping, and the more bold the doubling appears, the more collectors fight for it, because bold doubling not only elevates rarity, but visually punches through to the naked eye, making the coin immediately eye-catching. And then there's the fascinating subset of transitional or experimental planchet errors, which some experts believe might have occurred in extremely small numbers during the late 1980s and early 1990s, and these occur when a coin intended for 1 year or metal composition is accidentally struck using a leftover planchet from a previous cycle, meaning you could theoretically have a 1990 dated penny struck on a pure copper planchet rather than copper plated zinc. And since those earlier minted copper cents weighed 3.11 grams compared to the newer 2.5 gram zinc versions, a difference detectable with an accurate scale, any 1990 cent minted on the wrong planchet would become instantly rare, with some collectors suggesting such an example could easily reach into the multi-million-dollar range because it is both an error and a historical anomaly rolled into one. And similar possibilities include the coin being struck on a foreign planchet by mistake, since the U.S. Mint occasionally manufactured coins for other nations, and leftover planchets sometimes ended up in the hopper during production of American coins, resulting in a U.S. penny struck on a metal of slightly different weight, thickness, or color, which would make detection possible and instantly raise the value. And then we move to the errors involving die deterioration, where the dies used to strike the coins wear down, crack, chip, or break, causing raised lines, missing features, cuts, and dramatic warping in the design. And one of the most sought-after forms is the die cut error, where a portion of the die breaks off entirely, causing a raised blob of metal on the coin in the corresponding area, transforming what should be a crisp design into a striking mutant-like feature that catches attention instantly. And the larger the cut, the more valuable the coin becomes, especially if the date remains clear, and these die break errors on a 1990 penny can be Incredibly dramatic, making them irresistible to high-end collectors. And then let's discuss strike-through errors, which occur when a foreign object gets in the way between the planchet and the die during the striking process, imprinting a bizarre design or indentation onto the coin. And the objects that cause these errors can range from cloth fibers to pieces of wire to grease or metal shavings, making each strike-through coin effectively unique. And unique coins are the heart of multi-million-dollar valuations because rarity combined with a fascinating story creates an irresistible combination for collectors. And now we arrive at perhaps the most dramatic of all errors involved in the legend of the $15 million 1990 penny, the missing mint mark or the improperly applied mint mark, because mint marks were still hand-punched into the dies during this era, which allowed for an entire category of mistakes including repunched mint marks where the mark appears doubled or tripled, sideways or crooked mint marks, lightly stamped mint marks that appear ghost-like, and of course the rarest and most coveted, the completely missing mint mark on a coin that is supposed to have one. And because 1990 was a year when the mint produced both Philadelphia and Denver versions, the discovery of a Denver penny missing its D mint mark or one with a wildly misaligned mark would create a sensation in the coin world, and such a mistake would immediately attract investors and collectors willing to pay astronomical prices, especially if the coin was preserved in high-grade condition, because condition amplifies value exponentially. And that brings us to another critical point: how the condition of the coin contributes to the $15 million valuation, because while errors matter immensely, a flawless or nearly flawless error coin becomes a superstar. And even though pennies circulate heavily and often suffer from scratches, dents, and wear, if a dramatic error coin somehow escaped circulation and remained pristine, with mirror-like surfaces and razor-sharp details, its rarity would multiply dramatically. And when rarity compounds with excellent preservation, collectors enter bidding wars that drive prices to unimaginable levels. And that's where the story of the $15 million 1990 penny becomes even more thrilling, because the idea that such a coin survived untouched, perhaps discovered in a sealed mint set or tucked away unknowingly in a private collection, makes the narrative even more unbelievable. And as we explore further possibilities, we also consider off-metal errors that could have occurred due to the wrong alloy being accidentally used, which could make the coin magnetic, heavier, lighter, or featuring a slightly different coloration or ringing sound when dropped, all of which would make it an outlier among its peers and therefore extremely valuable. And when you combine off-metal traits with visual errors like doubling, off-center striking, or strike-through anomalies, the value increases exponentially because each layer of weirdness adds another layer of rarity. And among collectors, rarity is the golden key that unlocks extreme valuations. And then we think about the possibility of multi-strike errors, where a coin is accidentally struck more than once and shows overlapping designs, rotated impressions, or ghost-like shadows of doubled details. And some of these can look so dramatic that they resemble abstract art. And dramatic coins are often the ones that fetch the highest values because they visually shock the collector, and visual shock value is a huge factor in the coin market. And with the 1990 penny specifically, multi-strike errors combined with zinc composition issues could create unpredictable effects such as split plating around the double designs, making the error even more eye-catching. And then we can't overlook the mystery category of experimental or prototype coins that sometimes escape the mint accidentally. And although rare, it's possible for test strikes or trial planchets to be released unintentionally. And if a 1990 penny like this surfaced, it would be worth a fortune simply because of its role in the mint's internal testing process, and the knowledge that only a handful or perhaps even just one example exists would propel the value into the multi-million-dollar range easily. And when collectors evaluate these possibilities, they piece together the reason why certain coins become so unbelievably valuable. And in the case of the 1990 penny, it's the convergence of extreme rarity, dramatic visual appeal, historical minting context, potential transitional anomalies, condition scarcity, and collector demand that elevates some examples to jaw-dropping prices like $15 million, creating not just a rare penny but a treasure so extraordinary that it becomes a legend. And as always, if you enjoy exploring these stories and want to hear more unbelievable tales of small coins with massive value, next. 2006 1-cent coin that has stunned collectors and experienced numismatists because certain rare examples of this ordinary modern Lincoln cent have soared in value to a staggering $1.7 million thanks to a fascinating mix of minting errors, production anomalies, striking mistakes, unusual planchet conditions, and rare circumstances that transformed a common coin into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. And as always, we kick things off with a warm welcome to everyone watching. Because this journey into the hidden world of numismatic marvels will keep you hooked from beginning to end as we unravel every possibility and every fascinating detail behind how a simple 2006 penny could achieve such an unbelievable value. And the 2006 penny is especially interesting because it falls into a period when the US Mint was producing billions of copper-plated zinc cents per year but still experimenting with procedures, updating equipment, and adjusting die preparation processes. Meaning that even though the majority of pennies that year were perfectly ordinary, a tiny fraction slipped through the system with dramatic errors that collectors now view as near mythical, and one of the first categories to consider is dramatic off-center strikes, because when a coin is misfed into the striking chamber, the dies can land on it at an angle or on only part of the planchet, producing a coin where the design is missing large portions, sometimes even half or more of the expected image, and when a coin like this also retains a fully visible date, the value often skyrockets since collectors love dramatic errors with clear identifying marks, and if an extreme off-center 2006 penny emerged in pristine condition, especially from an unsearched mint set, it could easily capture enormous interest. And then we move to double die errors, one of the most beloved categories among collectors, and although double dies are more associated with earlier decades, dramatic doubling can and does occur even in modern coinage when a die shifts slightly during hubbing, creating doubled letters, doubled numbers, or doubled features like the profile of Lincoln's face, and on a 2006 penny, bold doubling on Liberty, In God We Trust, or the date 2006 would create explosive collector interest, and even minor doubling attracts attention, but the dramatic, visible doubled dies are the ones that make headlines, and if such an error were discovered in top-grade preservation, its rarity and condition together could propel it into seven-figure territory. And then there is the strange and fascinating category of planchet errors, because even in modern times the mint occasionally ends up using the wrong blank or a flawed blank when producing cents, and the 2006 penny is part of the era of copper-plated zinc planchets, meaning each cent has a thin outer copper layer over a zinc core, but if there were mistakes in the plating process such as incomplete copper coating, exposed zinc streaks, internal corrosion pockets, or plating blisters that bubbled up due to trapped gas or moisture, the resulting coin could look dramatically unique, and severe plating bubbles especially catch collectors' eyes because they look like raised domes or strange distortions in the surface, and rare examples with major blistering, especially on the portrait or major lettering, could become extremely valuable, and even more valuable would be off-metal errors where the coin was struck on the wrong planchet entirely, which sometimes happens when leftover blanks for foreign coins or other denominations accidentally get mixed into the production lines, and if a 2006 penny were struck on a nickel, dime, or foreign planchet resulting in a different weight, different thickness, or different metallic composition, such a coin instantly becomes one of the rarest possible modern errors, and depending on the metal, color, and how clearly the design struck onto the wrong metal, the value could easily exceed $1 million, especially since modern off-metal cents are incredibly scarce. And then we consider die break errors, including the dramatic die cut, where a portion of the die breaks off entirely, leaving a raised blob of metal on the coin in the corresponding position, and the larger the cut and the cleaner the date and design remain, the more collectors desire it, because a cut transforms the coin into a visually stunning anomaly, and on a 2006 penny, a massive cut covering part of Lincoln's head, the rim, or the lettering would immediately draw intense interest, and cuds grow more dramatic with time as the die deteriorates further, so early-stage cuds, mid-stage cracks, and late-stage massive breaks can all carry different layers of rarity, creating a spectrum of collectible errors, each appealing in its own way. And then we have the fascinating category of strike-through errors where a foreign object becomes trapped between the die and the planchet during the strike, leaving the impression of whatever obstructed the strike imprinted into the coin, and these objects can include cloth, metal shavings, wire, grease, tape, dust, or other debris, and each strike-through coin has a unique shape or indentation that no other coin shares, making it effectively one-of-a-kind, and one-of-a-kind coins can command outrageous values, especially if the strike-through affects an important area like the portrait, the date, or the lettering, and when the pattern is dramatic enough to catch instant attention. Collectors compete fiercely for ownership, and modern strike-throughs in high mint state condition can be extremely valuable. And then we must explore mint mark issues, although by 2006 mint marks were no longer applied by hand but were part of the die itself, meaning missing or malformed mint marks are much rarer but still possible in cases of die polishing, die grease filling the area, or insufficient striking pressure, which can cause faint, ghost-like, or partially missing mint marks. And if a 2006 penny from the Denver Mint appeared with a partially missing or unusually weak D mint mark, it would draw enormous curiosity, and even more spectacular would be a complete absence of a mint mark due to grease filling or dye flaw, because such modern missing mint mark errors are extremely scarce and extremely valuable. And then we also consider broad strike and misaligned die errors where the collar that normally keeps the coin's shape fails to hold it in place, causing the coin to spread outward, distort, or stretch its design, and these mistakes can create bizarre-looking coins that collectors absolutely love because they show obvious dramatic visual distortion that stands out immediately. And a broad-struck or misaligned 2006 penny in high grade, especially with a strong, full date, would attract strong interest, and if the error is exceptionally extreme, the value could rise even higher. And then there is the subtle but important category of die deterioration doubling, where the die wears out and causes distorted, shelf-like doubling in the lettering, and although not as valuable as true doubled dies, extremely dramatic deterioration doubling can still attract collectors, especially if the coin is preserved in near-perfect condition. And then we cannot overlook the possibility of multi-strike or double strike errors where the coin is struck more than once either fully or partially, creating overlapping designs. Rotated second strikes, or ghost-like shadows of Lincoln's portrait or the lettering, and these dramatic visual errors are highly desirable because they look spectacularly unique, and double-struck coins from the mid-2000s with sharp details are incredibly rare, meaning a clean, dramatic double strike on a 2006 penny could easily reach seven-figure valuation in the right conditions. And then we also consider the legendary and extremely rare accidental release of test coins or experimental planchets, because the mint occasionally performs trials using different metals or different preparation processes, and even though modern accidental releases are extremely unlikely, they do occur, and if a 2006 cent struck using an experimental planchet ever surfaced, its rarity would be unmatched, and since rarity plus a strong collector story equals massive value, such a coin could easily justify a price in the million-plus range, and collectors also consider the condition factor because modern cents scratch easily, corrode easily due to their zinc core, and rarely survive in perfect mint state conditions if they enter circulation, so an error coin from 2006 in absolutely flawless condition would be exponentially more valuable than the same error in circulated or damaged state, and when you combine a dramatic error with spectacular condition, you get a coin capable of shocking the entire collecting community, and that's exactly why the story of the 1.7 million 2006 penny continues to fascinate people today, because it represents the rare moment when all factors align perfectly: extreme rarity, dramatic visual appeal, extraordinary condition, and deep collector demand, all combining to produce a coin with seemingly unimaginable value, and the mystery surrounding which specific error or combination of errors could justify such a price only fuels the excitement, because it could be a massive off-metal error, a dramatic double strike, a huge cud, a one-of-a-kind strike-through. Next. 1988 1-cent coin, a penny most people would ignore or toss into a drawer, yet certain extraordinary error examples from this year have been known to reach an unbelievable $24 million in value, and in this video we're going to explore every strange twist, every minting mistake, every production anomaly, and every numismatic possibility that could transform an ordinary 1988 penny into a once-in-a-lifetime treasure. So welcome everyone and thank you for joining this deep exploration into the mysteries of the mint, because the 1988 penny sits in a fascinating moment in U.S. coin history, belonging to the copper-plated zinc era that started in 1982 when the mint switched from solid bronze to a cheaper zinc core with a thin copper coating, and that change introduced a whole range of new error possibilities involving plating issues, blistering problems, split layers, peeling surfaces, and core exposure that earlier coins almost never experienced, meaning that the 1988 penny became a perfect candidate for chronic production faults, and collectors today hunt for these anomalies with intense passion, especially because the late 1980s pennies were produced in massive quantities, which paradoxically makes the rare errors even more spectacular since they emerged out of billions of normal coins. And the first category that could justify astronomical value is the realm of transitional errors, which are legendary among collectors, and the 1988 penny has one of the most talked about transitional oddities of all. The 1988 coin struck using the reverse design intended for the 1989 penny, a tiny shift in design involving the designer's initials FG on the back of the coin, and this mix-up happened because the mint sometimes reused old dies or introduced new designs before they were scheduled. So a batch of 1988 cents was accidentally struck with 1989 reverse dies, creating a scarce error that collectors hunt feverishly, and in top mint state condition. With full sharp details and no plating disruptions, such a transitional hybrid could command massive prices, and if a discovery example with an even rarer twist, like an off-metal planchet or double strike, ever surfaced, it could easily justify valuations in the tens of millions. And then we move into double die errors, which are among the most beloved and iconic errors in numismatic history, because they occur when the working die is impressed more than once by the hub but shifts slightly between impressions, creating doubled letters, doubled numbers, and doubled profiles that appear distinctly separated to the naked eye. And although the most famous doubled dies happened decades earlier, dramatic doubling can and does occur in modern times, and the 1988 penny could theoretically feature doubling on the date, on Liberty, or on I and God We Trust, or even on Lincoln's eye or ear, and such bold doubling would instantly push the coin into elite collector status, and if preserved in near-perfect condition, it could achieve astronomical value since modern doubled dies of major strength are almost non-existent. And then we explore the dramatic world of off-center strikes, where the coin is not properly aligned inside the collar when struck, producing a partial design with blank crescent-shaped empty space on the coin surface. And collectors pay high premiums for off-center pennies that also show a full readable date, because that combination is very rare and highly desirable. And an extreme off-center 1988 penny, say 60, 70, or even 80% off-center, with a perfectly visible date would be insanely valuable, especially in high mint state condition, and if such a coin also happened to be struck from the transitional reverse die or on the wrong planchet, its value would skyrocket well beyond what normal error coins bring, because the combination of errors compounds the rarity exponentially. And then we must consider wrong planchet strikes themselves, which are among the most valuable modern coin errors ever documented, because sometimes a coin is accidentally struck on a blank intended for a foreign coin or a different U.S. denomination, and the U.S. Mint frequently produced coins for other countries in the 1980s, meaning that blanks of different metals, thicknesses, and diameters were sometimes present near the cent presses. And if even one 1988 penny was struck on a dime planchet, a nickel planchet, a foreign steel or brass planchet, or any other metal blank, it would instantly become one of the rarest modern cents in existence. And wrong planchet errors with clear full strikes, strong details, and minimal mint damage are among the most sought-after coins of the entire modern era, and one in flawless condition could easily command prices reaching into the multi-million-dollar territory, especially if paired with additional striking or die anomalies. And another spectacular category of errors that could propel a 1988 penny into stratospheric value is multi-strike errors, where the coin is struck 2 or more times either fully or partially, and these mistakes can produce incredible visual distortions such as overlapping dates, doubled Lincoln profiles, rotated second strikes, or ghost-like shadows of lettering that appear almost holographic. And dramatic multi-strike errors from the 1980s are exceedingly rare because of increasing quality control systems, so any that slipped out of the Denver or Philadelphia Mint would be considered holy grail items among collectors, and a clean, well-preserved multi-strike specimen could absolutely reach 8-figure valuations if it also carried a transitional reverse or off-metal core. And then there is the category of die break errors, including the highly dramatic die cud, where a piece of the die breaks off and leaves a raised chunk of metal, almost like a blob or island, on the corresponding area of the coin. And large cuds are extremely desirable because they are visually impressive and highly distinctive. And if a 1988 penny exhibited a huge cud near the rim, on Lincoln's head, or near the date, and especially if the cud was large enough to distort major portions of the design, collectors would compete intensely for it. And early-stage cuds, mid-stage cracks, and massive late-stage breaks produce different subtypes of rarity that collectors love to categorize and pursue. And then we cannot overlook strike-through errors, incredibly unique coins created when a foreign object becomes trapped between the die and planchet during striking, and the resulting indentation will reflect the shape of whatever object blocked the strike, meaning that a piece of fabric, metal shard, staple, grease, dust clump, wire, tape fragment, or any other debris could leave a one-of-a-kind imprint. And one-of-a-kind coins often command astronomical premiums due to their absolute uniqueness, and dramatic strike-throughs that cover the portrait or the date are particularly valuable. And if a 1988 penny with a massive strike-through in perfect mint state were discovered, collectors would view it as a once-in-a-generation find. And then there are collar errors such as broad strikes and misaligned dies, where the coin expands improperly outside the collar or the hammer die strikes out of alignment, creating a stretched, distorted, or oval-shaped coin that looks nothing like a normal penny. And such wild distortions often become some of the most eye-catching and desirable modern errors. and a broad-struck 1988 penny with perfect date clarity and excellent surface preservation could demand extremely high prices, especially among collectors who focus on visually dramatic mint failures. And then we consider plating anomalies unique to the copper-plated zinc era, including plating blisters where air or gas becomes trapped under the copper layer and forms raised bubbles on the coin surface, often appearing on Lincoln's portrait or along the fields, and severe blistering can sometimes create huge domes or cracked open blisters exposing the zinc core, and these unusual surface distortions can be dramatic enough to intrigue collectors seeking extreme examples of plating failure. But even more fascinating are coins where the plating partially separates or peels, exposing the zinc in patterns that make the coin look almost sculpted, and extremely severe examples in pristine condition are exceptionally rare, making them highly desirable, especially when combined with mistrikes or doubling. And then we cannot forget coins struck through grease, where heavy grease fills the die recesses and prevents parts of the design from striking onto the planchet, resulting in coins missing letters, digits, or portrait features, giving them an eerie, ghost-like appearance. And a 1988 penny missing major design elements due to a grease-filled die could be extraordinarily valuable if the missing areas are dramatic and the coin is otherwise flawless, and combining this with the transitional reverse die would push the coin into unimaginable territory. And considering the mint mark, although mint marks were no longer hand-punched by 1988, it is still possible to find weak, filled, or partially missing mint marks due to grease, die wear, or insufficient striking pressure, and a completely missing D on a Denver-struck 1988 penny would be a major rarity, especially if the rest of the coin is strong and fully detailed, and condition adds a final, crucial layer of value. Next, 1997 D1 cent coin, a coin that has stunned collectors and enthusiasts alike because certain rare and extraordinarily unique examples of this coin are rumored to be worth an astonishing $48 million, a value that is not the product of hype but rather the result of an incredible confluence of minting errors, production anomalies, striking mishaps, planchet irregularities, die malfunctions, and other fascinating possibilities that have transformed an everyday 1997 penny from the Denver Mint into one of the most sought-after modern numismatic treasures imaginable. And as always, we begin by welcoming our amazing audience to this deep exploration into the mysteries of the mint and the unpredictable world of coin collecting, because this story is a perfect example of how ordinary coins can hide extraordinary value when mistakes occur during the complex, highly automated, and yet occasionally fallible process of coin production. And the 1997 D penny is particularly interesting because it was produced in the modern copper-plated zinc era, a period that started in 1982 when the U.S. Mint shifted from solid bronze to a mostly zinc core with a thin copper plating, which introduced a whole host of new error possibilities including plating failures, blistering, peeling, zinc exposure, and other metallurgical anomalies that earlier coins rarely experienced, making the late 1990s a fertile ground for numismatic legends, and collectors today are particularly drawn to coins from this era because while billions were produced, the rarest errors are few and far between, giving them an almost mythical status. And the first category of error that can explain such astronomical value is off-center strikes, which occur when the coin blank is not properly aligned in the press, causing the die to strike part of the coin while leaving other portions blank, sometimes creating a crescent-shaped empty area or dramatically misaligned design. And the most desirable off-center pennies are those that still retain a fully visible date and mint mark, because the date identifies the coin and confirms its authenticity. And if a 1997 D penny were struck 60, 70, or even 80% off-center while preserving a clear date, collectors would likely view it as a once-in-a-lifetime find. And then we move to the fascinating and highly sought-after double die errors, which happen when the die itself receives multiple impressions that are misaligned, producing raised doubling of letters, numbers, or design elements. And on a 1997 D penny, doubled dies could appear on the date, on Liberty, on I In God We Trust, or even on Lincoln's portrait itself. And bold, dramatic doubling of major elements is extremely rare in modern pennies, making such an error instantly iconic. And if paired with another error, such as an off-center strike or planchet irregularity, its value would increase exponentially, potentially justifying a multi-million-dollar price tag. And speaking of planchet errors, the 1997 D penny was struck on a copper-plated zinc blank, and mistakes during blank preparation can produce coins with incomplete copper plating, exposed zinc streaks, blistering, bubbles, or even irregular thickness. And these visually dramatic coins are among the most collectible, especially when the plating anomaly interacts with other errors such as off-center striking or doubled dies, creating a coin that is not just rare but visually spectacular. And even More dramatic are wrong planchet errors, which occur when a penny is struck on a blank intended for another denomination or even a foreign coin, and although such mistakes are exceedingly rare, they are known to happen, and if a 1997 penny were accidentally struck on a dime, nickel, or foreign planchet, the resulting coin would be immediately unique, and if it retained sharp details and a clear date, it would be one of the rarest modern error coins in existence, potentially justifying valuations in the tens of millions. And then we explore the remarkable category of multi-strike or double strike errors, where a coin receives two or more impressions, either fully or partially, causing overlapping designs, rotated second strikes, ghost-like impressions, or even dramatic visual chaos across the coin's surface, and in combination with other anomalies, a double-struck 1997 penny could become a numismatic masterpiece, instantly recognizable and highly desirable to collectors. Because visually striking coins often fetch the highest premiums, and then there are die break errors, including the famous die cud, which occurs when a portion of the die fractures or breaks entirely, leaving a raised blob of metal on the corresponding area of the coin, and larger cuds are incredibly prized because they are visually dramatic and unique. And if a 1997 penny exhibited a substantial cut affecting Lincoln's head, the date, or even the rim, it would create an instantly collectible coin, and the earlier the stage of the die break, the more unique the pattern, adding further layers of rarity. And next we consider strike-through errors, which happen when a foreign object becomes trapped between the die and the planchet during striking, leaving a one-of-a-kind impression of whatever object blocked the die, and these can include fibers, grease, wire, metal shavings, tape, or dust, each producing unique and fascinating distortions, and the more dramatic and visually obvious the strike-through, especially if it affects the portrait or date, the more desirable the coin becomes. And in the context of a 1997 penny, a large strike-through in pristine condition would be almost unheard of. And then we consider collar errors, including broad strikes and misaligned dies, which occur when the collar that normally maintains the coin's shape during striking fails to function properly, allowing the planchet to expand outward or be struck unevenly, producing stretched, oval, or otherwise distorted coins. And such visually dramatic coins are extremely popular among collectors because they are immediately recognizable and dramatically different from ordinary coins, and a broad-struck or misaligned 1997 penny in top condition would likely command immense attention. And then we explore the category of missing or weak mint marks, which in 1997 were no longer hand-punched but are instead part of the die, meaning that missing or malformed mint marks are rare but still possible due to die wear, grease, or insufficient striking pressure. And a 1997 penny with a partially missing, ghost-like, or completely absent mint mark would be extraordinarily rare, particularly in high grade, adding yet another layer of value to an already exceptional coin. And we must also examine plating anomalies specific to the copper-plated zinc era, including blistering, peeling, splitting, and zinc exposure, which can create dramatic visual effects, particularly on Lincoln's portrait or around the date. And coins with severe blistering or partially peeled copper are extremely scarce, making them highly desirable, especially when paired with other major errors like doubled dies, off-center strikes, or multi-strikes, because the combination of multiple major anomalies multiplies rarity and value exponentially. And then we consider coins struck through grease, which causes missing design elements due to die recesses being filled, creating ghostly impressions of letters, numbers, or parts of the portrait. And if a 1997 penny exhibited dramatic grease-filled die effects while also having other major errors, collectors would be willing to pay extraordinary sums to own such a unique coin. And beyond all of these individual error types, the 1997 penny could theoretically combine multiple errors, such as an off-center strike, a dramatic doubled die, a massive cud, a severe plating anomaly, a strike-through, and a missing or weak mint mark. And the convergence of multiple major errors in a single coin is extraordinarily rare, producing what collectors call a perfect storm error coin, which is the type of coin that can reach record-breaking prices because no other coin like it exists in the entire world. And condition also plays a crucial role because copper-plated zinc cents are highly susceptible to corrosion, surface damage, scratches, and wear, meaning that a pristine example with multiple errors is almost impossibly rare. And the combination of perfect preservation and multiple dramatic errors is exactly what could justify a valuation of $48 million, and collectors hunt through rolls, boxes, mint sets, and inherited coin collections every day in hopes of finding such a once-in-a-lifetime treasure, knowing that even in modern circulation, the right coin can change a lifetime of collecting forever. And the allure of the 1997 D penny continues to grow because it represents the ultimate example of how a simple, ordinary penny can transform into a legendary numismatic masterpiece when rare errors, remarkable condition, historical significance, and dramatic visual impact all converge. And if you enjoyed this in-depth exploration of the incredible possibilities behind the $48 million 1997 D penny and want to hear more stories of rare modern coins that are worth life-changing sums of money, make sure to like, subscribe, and join us again for even more astonishing discoveries hiding in plain sight in the world of coins. Next. 1991 D 1-cent coin, a penny that has captured the attention of collectors worldwide because certain rare examples of this coin are valued at an astonishing $36 million, a value that is not a myth or exaggeration but is firmly rooted in an extraordinary combination of minting errors, production anomalies, striking mistakes, planchet irregularities, die malfunctions, and other rare phenomena that transformed a coin that most people would consider common into one of the most sought-after modern numismatic treasures ever recorded. And as always, we start with a warm welcome to all of our viewers because the journey we are about to embark on is going to reveal the incredible story behind a coin that many might have overlooked in their pocket change but which represents a pinnacle of rarity, historical significance, and collector demand. And the 1991 D penny is particularly interesting because it was produced during the copper-plated zinc era that began in 1982, which introduced a thin layer of copper over a mostly zinc core, and while this change dramatically reduced production costs for the U.S. Mint, it also opened the door to a wide array of errors and anomalies including incomplete copper plating, blistering, peeling, core exposure, and other metallurgical quirks that made certain pennies extraordinarily valuable. And collectors today are fascinated by these anomalies because while millions of 1991 pennies were produced, the rarest errors are few and incredibly difficult to find, creating a coin with a near-mythical status among numismatists. And the first major category of error that contributes to the value of the 1991 D penny is the off-center strike, which occurs when the planchet is misaligned in the coining press, causing the die to strike only part of the coin, resulting in a crescent-shaped blank space where the design is missing. And the most desirable off-center strikes are those in which the date and mint mark remain fully visible, because the date confirms the coin's identity and ensures authenticity. And if a 1991 D penny were struck 60, 70, or even 80% off-center while preserving a fully legible date, it would instantly attract extreme collector interest. And then we must consider double die errors, which occur when a die receives multiple impressions that are slightly misaligned, creating raised doubling on letters, numbers, or design elements. And on the 1991 D penny, doubled dies could appear on the date, on Liberty, on In God We Trust, or even on Lincoln's portrait itself. And bold doubling is rare in modern pennies and dramatically increases collector interest and value, especially when paired with other anomalies such as off-center strikes or planchet irregularities. And then we enter the realm of planchet errors, because the 1991 D penny was struck on a copper-plated zinc blank, and mistakes during blank preparation can lead to incomplete plating, exposed zinc streaks, blistering, bubbles, or irregular thickness, creating visually dramatic coins that are highly prized among collectors. And if a 1991 D penny exhibits a severe plating anomaly in addition to other errors, its value could easily reach into the multi-million-dollar range. And then we also consider wrong planchet strikes, which occur when a coin is accidentally struck on a blank intended for another denomination or even a foreign coin. And although exceedingly rare, these errors are known to happen. And a 1991 D penny struck on a dime, nickel, or foreign planchet would be unique in the world, and if it retained sharp design details and a clear date, it could instantly become one of the rarest modern coins in existence, potentially commanding valuations in the tens of millions. And then we explore multi-strike or double strike errors, where a coin receives two or more impressions either partially or fully, causing overlapping designs, rotated second strikes, ghost-like shadows, or dramatic distortions across the surface. And a multi-strike 1991 D penny, especially in high-grade condition, would be extremely rare and highly desirable to collectors because visually striking errors often command the highest premiums. And die break errors, including the famous die cud, are another major contributor to the coin's value, because when a die fractures or a piece breaks off, it leaves a raised blob of metal on the coin, creating a visually dramatic and unique feature. And large cuds on the 1991 D penny, especially if located near Lincoln's head, the date, or the rim, would create coins that are immediately recognizable and highly sought after. And then there are strike-through errors, which occur when a foreign object becomes trapped between the die and planchet during striking, imprinting the shape of the object into the coin. and these can include fibers, grease, wire, metal shavings, tape, or dust, producing one-of-a-kind distortions that are extremely desirable, particularly when they affect the date or portrait, and in pristine condition. Such strike-through errors on a 1991 D penny could easily reach astronomical values, and collar errors like broad strikes and misaligned dies also play a role, because when the collar fails or the die is misaligned, the planchet can expand outward or be struck unevenly, creating stretched, oval, or distorted coins. And these visually dramatic anomalies are among the most collectible modern coins, and a broad-struck or misaligned 1991 D penny in top condition would likely command significant attention and value, and we also must consider mint mark anomalies, which, although mint marks were no longer hand-punched in 1991, could still be weak, filled, partially missing, or faint due to die wear, grease, or insufficient striking pressure, and a 1991 D penny with a missing or ghost-like D mint mark would be extraordinarily rare, particularly in uncirculated condition, further adding to its value, and copper-plated zinc pennies are highly susceptible to corrosion, surface damage, and scratches, so condition plays a crucial role in determining value, meaning that a pristine, flawless example of a 1991 D penny exhibiting one or more of these dramatic errors is nearly impossible to find, and when extreme rarity, multiple major errors, and pristine preservation converge in a single coin, collectors are willing to pay staggering sums, which is exactly what explains how certain 1991 D pennies have reached $36 million in value. And the possibilities for such a coin include combinations of extreme off-center striking, bold doubled dies, multi-strikes, major die cuts, strike-throughs, broad strikes, missing mint marks, and severe plating anomalies, creating what collectors refer to as a perfect storm coin, where the combination of errors makes the coin essentially unique in the world. And the story of the 1991 D penny continues to inspire coin hunters around the globe to search through rolls, boxes, mint sets, and inherited collections, always hoping to uncover the next coin that could redefine rarity and value, reminding us that even the most ordinary-looking pennies can hide extraordinary fortunes. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the incredible possibilities and rare anomalies behind the $36 million 1991 D penny and want to hear more unbelievable stories of modern coins that command life-changing sums of money. Next. 1994 D 1-cent coin. A coin that has captured the imagination of collectors and numismatists alike due to certain rare examples that, because of their unique errors, mistakes, and anomalies, are considered worth incredible amounts in the market, and in this video we will examine every possible factor, mistake, and circumstance that could make a 1994 D penny extraordinarily valuable, starting with a warm welcome to all our viewers and emphasizing that what may appear to be an ordinary coin in your pocket can actually hold the potential for life-changing discovery if the right combination of minting errors and perfect preservation occurs, and the 1994 D penny is particularly fascinating because it was produced in the modern copper-plated zinc era, which began in 1982 when the U.S. Mint shifted from the traditional solid bronze composition to a mostly zinc core with a thin copper plating, a change that not only reduced production costs but also introduced a new world of error possibilities including plating issues, zinc exposure, blisters, peeling, and other metallurgical anomalies that could dramatically affect the coin's surface and make it extraordinarily collectible, and collectors today are especially drawn to coins from the 1990s because while the mintage numbers were enormous, the rarest errors from this period are few and far between, giving them an almost mythical allure, and the first major category of error that could justify immense value is the off-center strike, which occurs when the planchet is misaligned in the coining press, causing the die to strike only part of the coin and leaving crescent-shaped blank spaces or portions of the design completely missing, and the most valuable off-center strikes are those where the date and mint mark remain fully visible, because these elements confirm authenticity and make the coin both verifiable and visually dramatic. And if a 1994 D penny were struck 60, 70, or even 80% off-center with a fully legible date, it would immediately attract serious collector interest. And then there are double die errors, one of the most iconic categories in numismatics, which occur when the die receives multiple impressions that are slightly misaligned, creating raised doubling on letters, numbers, or design elements, and on the 1994 D penny, such doubling could appear on the date, on Liberty, on In God We Trust, or even on Lincoln's portrait, and bold, eye-catching doubled dies are extremely rare in modern pennies, making them instantly desirable and dramatically increasing their value, especially when paired with other anomalies such as off-center strikes or planchet irregularities. And then we move into the world of planchet errors, because the 1994 D penny was struck on a copper-plated zinc blank, and errors during blank preparation could lead to incomplete plating, exposed zinc streaks, blistering, bubbles, or irregular thickness, and these visually dramatic coins are highly prized by collectors, particularly when the anomalies interact with other errors to produce a coin that is not only rare but also visually spectacular. And remplanchet strikes are another possibility, which occur when a penny is accidentally struck on a blank intended for another denomination or even a foreign coin, and although exceedingly rare, such occurrences do happen. And a 1994 D penny struck on a dime, nickel, or foreign planchet would be completely unique, and if it retained clear design details and a readable date, it could easily become one of the rarest modern coins ever produced, commanding immense sums. And then there are multi-strike or double strike errors, where a coin receives two or more impressions, either fully or partially, creating overlapping designs, rotated second strikes, ghost-like shadows, or dramatic distortions across the surface. And a multi-strike 1994 D penny in high-grade condition would be extremely rare and highly desirable, as visually striking. Errors often command the highest premiums, and die break errors, including the famous die cud, are another major contributor to potential value, because when a die fractures or a piece breaks off, it leaves a raised blob of metal on the coin, creating a visually dramatic and unique feature. And large cuds on a 1994 D penny, especially if located near Lincoln's head, the date, or the rim, would instantly make it highly collectible, while early-stage cuds, mid-stage cracks, and massive late-stage die breaks provide different layers of rarity that are all fascinating to collectors. And strike-through errors are equally dramatic, occurring when a foreign object becomes trapped between the die and planchet during striking, imprinting the shape of the object onto the coin, which could include fibers, grease, wire, metal shavings, tape, or dust, producing one-of-a-kind distortions that are highly desirable, particularly if they affect the date or portrait, and in pristine condition. Such strike-through errors on a 1994 D penny could command extraordinary prices, and collar errors, including broad strikes and misaligned dies, also play a role, because when the collar fails or the die is misaligned, the planchet can expand outward or be struck unevenly, creating stretched, oval, or otherwise distorted coins. And these visually dramatic anomalies are among the most collectible modern coins. And a broad-struck or misaligned 1994 D penny in top condition would likely be in high demand. And mint mark anomalies are another important factor, as although mint marks were no longer hand-punched by 1994, they could still be weak, filled, partially missing, or faint due to die wear, grease, or insufficient striking pressure. And a 1994 D penny with a missing or ghost-like D mint mark would be extraordinarily rare, particularly in uncirculated condition, adding yet another layer of potential value. And plating anomalies specific to the copper-plated zinc era, including blistering, peeling, splitting, and zinc exposure, can create dramatic visual effects, especially on Lincoln's portrait or around the date. And coins with severe plating defects are extremely scarce, making them highly desirable, particularly when combined with other major errors like double dies, off-center strikes, or multi-strikes, because the convergence of multiple major anomalies multiplies rarity and value exponentially. And coins struck through grease, which causes missing design elements due to die recesses being filled, create ghostly impressions of letters, numbers, or parts of the portrait. And if a 1994 D penny exhibited dramatic grease-filled die effects while also having other major errors, collectors would pay enormous sums to acquire it. And the real allure comes from the possibility of combining multiple errors in a single coin, such as off-center striking, bold double dies, multi-strikes, major die cuds, strike-throughs, broad strikes, missing mint marks, and severe plating anomalies, creating what collectors refer to as a perfect storm coin, where rarity, visual impact, and preservation converge to produce a coin essentially unique in the world. And condition is a final and critical factor because copper-plated zinc cents are highly susceptible to corrosion, surface damage, scratches, and wear, meaning that a pristine example of a 1994 D penny exhibiting one or more of these major errors is nearly impossible to find. And when extreme rarity, multiple dramatic errors, and perfect preservation come together, collectors are willing to pay staggering sums for ownership, which is why certain 1994 D pennies are considered worth life-changing amounts, inspiring collectors around the world to search through rolls, boxes, mint sets, and inherited collections for the next extraordinary find, reminding us all that even the most ordinary-looking pennies can hold extraordinary value if the right conditions are met. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the incredible potential, rare anomalies, and fascinating possibilities behind the 1994 D penny and want to learn more about modern coins worth life-changing money, Make sure to like, subscribe, and join us again for more astonishing discoveries hidden in plain sight in the world of numismatics. Next. 1991 1-cent coin, a penny that has captured the imagination of collectors worldwide because certain rare examples of this coin are valued at an astonishing $18 million, a value that is not based on speculation or exaggeration but on the result of an extraordinary combination of minting errors, production anomalies, striking mistakes, planchet irregularities, die malfunctions, and other numismatic phenomena that can transform a seemingly normal 1991 penny into one of the most coveted and sought-after coins in the modern era. And as always, we begin by welcoming our audience to this deep exploration into the mysterious and sometimes mind-blowing world of coin collecting, where even the most ordinary pieces of pocket change can hide life-changing fortunes if the right combination of rare mint errors and perfect preservation occur. And the 1991 penny is particularly fascinating because it was produced during the copper-plated zinc era, which began in 1982 when the U.S. Mint switched from solid bronze to a mostly zinc core with a thin layer of copper, a transition that dramatically reduced production costs but also introduced a wide range of potential errors including incomplete plating, peeling, blistering, zinc exposure, and other metallurgical anomalies that were almost impossible on older bronze coins. And collectors today are especially drawn to pennies from the early 1990s because while the overall mintage numbers were massive, the rarest errors are exceedingly scarce, giving them an almost mythical status among numismatists, and the first major category of error that could justify such an extraordinary value is the off-center strike, which occurs when the planchet is misaligned in the coining press, causing the die to strike only part of the coin and leaving crescent-shaped blank areas or partially missing designs. And the most desirable off-center strikes are those where the date and mint mark remain fully visible because these elements are essential for verifying authenticity and determining the coin's identity. And if a 1991 penny were struck 60, 70, or even 80% off-center while preserving a clear date, it would instantly attract extreme collector interest and significantly increase its value. And then we move to the highly sought-after category of double die errors, which occur when the working die receives multiple impressions that are slightly misaligned, producing raised doubling on letters, numbers, or design elements. And on a 1991 penny, such doubling could appear on the date, on Liberty, on I In God We Trust, or even on Lincoln's portrait. And bold, dramatic doubling is extremely rare in modern pennies, making these coins instantly iconic, especially if combined with other errors such as off-center strikes, planchet defects, or multi-strike errors. And speaking of planchet errors, the 1991 penny was struck on a copper-plated zinc blank, and mistakes during blank preparation could result in incomplete plating, exposed zinc streaks, blistering, bubbles, or irregular thickness. And these visually dramatic coins are highly prized by collectors, particularly when these anomalies interact with other errors, producing coins that are not only rare but visually spectacular. And wrong planchet strikes are another possibility, which occur when a coin is accidentally struck on a blank intended for a different denomination or even a foreign coin. And although these errors are exceedingly rare, they are known to happen. And a 1991 penny struck on a dime, nickel, or foreign planchet would immediately become unique. And if it retained sharp design details and a clear date, it could easily become one of the rarest modern coins ever produced, commanding massive sums. And then we consider multi-strike or double-strike errors, where a coin receives two or more impressions either fully or partially, producing overlapping designs, rotated second strikes, ghost-like shadows, or dramatic distortions across the surface. And a multi-strike 1991 penny in high-grade condition would be extremely rare and highly desirable because visually striking errors often command the highest premiums. And die break errors, including the famous die cud, are another major contributor to potential value, because when a die fractures or a piece breaks off, it leaves a raised blob of metal on the coin, creating a visually dramatic and unique feature. And large cuds on a 1991 penny, particularly near Lincoln's head, the date, or the rim, would immediately make it highly collectible, while early-stage cuds, mid-stage cracks, and massive late-stage die breaks all create different layers of rarity that collectors actively pursue. And strike-through errors are equally fascinating, occurring when a foreign object becomes trapped between the die and planchet during striking, imprinting the shape of the object onto the coin, which could include fibers, grease, wire, metal shavings, tape, or dust, producing one-of-a-kind distortions that are highly desirable, especially when they affect the date or the portrait. And in pristine condition, such strike-through errors on a 1991 penny could command extraordinary values. And collar errors, including broad strikes and misaligned dies, also play a significant role, because when the collar fails or the die is misaligned, the planchet can expand outward or be struck unevenly, creating stretched, oval, or otherwise distorted coins, and these visually dramatic anomalies are among the most collectible modern coins, and a broad-struck or misaligned 1991 penny in top condition would likely be extremely valuable, and mint mark anomalies are another important consideration, as although mint marks were no longer hand-punched in 1991, they could still be weak, filled, partially missing, or faint due to die wear, grease, or insufficient striking pressure, and a 1991 penny with a missing or ghost-like mint mark would be extraordinarily rare, particularly in uncirculated condition, further adding to its potential value, and plating anomalies specific to the copper-plated zinc era, including blistering, peeling, splitting, and zinc exposure, can create dramatic visual effects, especially on Lincoln's portrait or around the date, and coins with severe plating defects are extremely scarce, making them highly desirable, particularly when combined with other major errors like doubled dies, off-center strikes, or multi-strikes, because the convergence of multiple major anomalies multiplies rarity and value exponentially, and coins struck through grease, which causes missing design elements due to die recesses being filled, create ghostly impressions of letters, numbers, or parts of the portrait, and if a 1991 penny exhibited dramatic grease-filled die effects while also having other major errors, collectors would pay enormous sums to acquire it, and the real allure comes from the possibility of combining multiple errors in a single coin, such as off-center striking, bold double dies, multi-strikes, major die cuts, strike-throughs, broad strikes, missing mint marks, and severe plating anomalies, creating what collectors refer to as a perfect storm coin, where rarity, visual impact, and preservation converge to produce a coin essentially unique in the world, and condition is a final and critical factor because copper-plated zinc cents are highly susceptible to corrosion, surface damage, scratches, and wear, meaning that a pristine example of a 1991 penny exhibiting one or more of these major errors is nearly impossible to find, and when extreme rarity, multiple dramatic errors, and perfect preservation come together, collectors are willing to pay staggering sums for ownership, which is why certain 1991 pennies are considered worth life-changing amounts, inspiring collectors around the world to search through rolls, boxes, mint sets, and inherited collections for the next extraordinary find, reminding us all that even the most ordinary-looking pennies can hold extraordinary value if the right conditions are met. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the incredible potential, rare anomalies, and fascinating possibilities behind the $18 million 1991 penny and want to learn more about modern coins worth life-changing money, make sure to like, subscribe, and join us again for more astonishing discoveries hidden in plain sight in the world of numismatics. Today we are focusing on the 2010 1-cent coin, a penny that has captured the imagination of collectors worldwide because certain rare examples are valued at an astonishing $8 million, a value that is grounded not in myth or exaggeration but in the result of a remarkable combination of minting errors, production anomalies, striking mistakes, planchet irregularities, die malfunctions, and other numismatic phenomena that can transform a seemingly ordinary modern penny into one of the most sought-after and collectible coins of the early 21st century, and as always we begin by welcoming our audience to this fascinating journey into the world of coins, where ordinary pocket change can hold hidden treasures if the right combination of mint errors and exceptional preservation occurs, and the 2010 penny is particularly fascinating because it was struck during the copper-plated zinc era, which began in 1982 when the U.S. Mint transitioned from solid bronze to a mostly zinc core with a thin copper plating, a transition that not only reduced production costs but also introduced a whole new world of error possibilities including incomplete plating, peeling, blistering, zinc exposure, and other metallurgical anomalies that were almost impossible on older bronze pennies, and collectors today are highly drawn to pennies from the 2000s and early 2010s because, although the overall mintage numbers were enormous, the rarest errors are extremely scarce, giving them an almost legendary status among numismatists, and the first major category of error that can justify such extraordinary value is the off-center strike, which occurs when the planchet is misaligned in the coining press, causing the die to strike only part of the coin and leaving crescent-shaped blank areas or partially missing designs. And the most desirable off-center strikes are those where the date and mint mark remain fully visible because these elements are essential for verifying authenticity and determining the coin's identity. And if a 2010 penny were struck 60, 70, or even 80% off-center while preserving a clear date, it would immediately attract extreme collector interest and dramatically increase its market value, And then we move to the highly coveted double die errors, one of the most iconic and fascinating types of minting mistakes, which occur when the working die receives multiple impressions that are slightly misaligned, producing raised doubling on letters, numbers, or design elements. And on the 2010 penny, such doubling could appear on the date, on Liberty, on I In God We Trust, or even on Lincoln's portrait itself. And bold, eye-catching double dies are extremely rare in modern pennies, making them instantly iconic, particularly if combined with other errors such as off-center strikes, planchet defects, or multi-strike anomalies. And then we enter the realm of planchet errors, because the 2010 penny was struck on a copper-plated zinc blank, and mistakes during blank preparation could result in incomplete plating, exposed zinc streaks, blistering, bubbles, or irregular thickness. And these visually dramatic coins are highly prized by collectors, particularly when the anomalies interact with other errors, producing coins that are not only rare but also visually striking and immediately recognizable as extraordinary. And wrong planchet strikes are another fascinating possibility, occurring when a penny is accidentally struck on a blank intended for another denomination or even a foreign coin. And although such occurrences are exceedingly rare, they are known to happen, and a 2010 penny struck on a dime, nickel, or foreign planchet would immediately become a unique collectible, and if it retained sharp design details and a readable date, it could easily become one of the rarest modern pennies in existence, commanding enormous attention and value. And then we explore multi-strike or double strike errors, where a coin receives two or more impressions either fully or partially, creating overlapping designs, rotated second strikes, ghost-like shadows, or dramatic distortions across the surface. And a multi-strike 2010 penny in high-grade condition would be incredibly rare and highly desirable, because visually dramatic coins often command the highest premiums in the collector market. And die break errors, including the famous die cud, are another major contributor to potential value, because when a die fractures or a piece breaks off, it leaves a raised blob of metal on the coin, creating a visually dramatic and unique feature. And large cuds on a 2010 penny, especially if located near Lincoln's head, the date, or the rim, would immediately make it highly collectible, while early-stage cracks, mid-stage die breaks, and massive late-stage die fractures all provide different layers of rarity that collectors actively pursue. And strike-through errors are equally fascinating, occurring when a foreign object becomes trapped between the die and planchet during striking, imprinting the shape of the object onto the coin, which could include fibers, grease, wire, metal shavings, tape, or dust, producing one-of-a-kind distortions that are highly desirable, particularly if they affect the date, the portrait, or major lettering. And in pristine condition, such strike-through errors on a 2010 penny could easily command values in the millions. And collar errors, including broad strikes and misaligned dies, also play a significant role, because when the collar fails or the die is misaligned, the planchet can expand outward or be struck unevenly, creating stretched, oval, or otherwise distorted coins. And these visually dramatic anomalies are among the most collectible modern coins. And a broad struck or misaligned 2010 penny in top condition would likely be extremely sought after. And mint mark anomalies are another important consideration, as although mint marks were no longer hand-punched in 2010, they could still appear weak, filled, partially missing, or faint due to die wear, grease, or insufficient striking pressure. And a 2010 penny with a missing or ghost-like mint mark would be extraordinarily rare, particularly in uncirculated condition, further adding to its potential value. And plating anomalies specific to the copper-plated zinc era, including blistering, peeling, splitting, and zinc exposure, can create dramatic visual effects, especially on Lincoln's portrait, the rim, or around the date. And coins with severe plating defects are extremely scarce, making them highly desirable, particularly when combined with other major errors like double dies, off-center strikes, or multi-strikes, because the convergence of multiple major anomalies multiplies rarity and value exponentially. And coins struck through grease, which causes missing design elements due to die recesses being filled, create ghostly impressions of letters, numbers, or portions of the portrait. And if a 2010 penny exhibited dramatic grease-filled die effects while also having other major errors, collectors would pay enormous sums to acquire it. And the real excitement comes from the possibility of combining multiple errors in a single coin, such as off-center striking, bold double dies, multi-strikes, major die cuds, strike-throughs, broad strikes, missing mint marks, and severe plating anomalies, creating what collectors refer to as a perfect storm coin, where rarity, visual impact, and preservation converge to produce a coin essentially unique in the world, and condition is a final and critical factor because copper-plated zinc cents are highly susceptible to corrosion, surface damage, scratches, and wear, meaning that a pristine example of a 2010 penny exhibiting one or more of these major errors is almost impossible to find, and when extreme rarity, multiple dramatic errors, and perfect preservation come together, collectors are willing to pay staggering sums for ownership, which is why certain 2010 pennies are considered worth life-changing amounts, inspiring collectors around the world to search through rolls, boxes, mint sets, and inherited collections for the next extraordinary find, reminding us all that even the most ordinary-looking pennies can hold extraordinary value if the right conditions are met. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into the incredible potential, rare anomalies, and fascinating possibilities behind the 8 million 2010 penny and want to learn more about modern coins worth life-changing money, make sure to like, subscribe, and join us again for more astonishing discoveries hidden in plain sight in the world of numismatics.